What's going on, carnivore family, bros, brodettes, all of you flesh-eating compatriots of mine out there? How you doing tonight? Hey, Friedrich Nietzsche said something that's important and relevant for today's discussion. He said, "This has caused me the greatest trouble, and still does always cause me the greatest trouble, to realize that what things are called is unspeakably more important than what they are." Now, most people do not have their own readily accessible definition of food. That is, they don't know what to call food explicitly. Most people don't have their own readily accessible definitions for anything, really. If you ask them to define food, they would probably be at a loss, or Google it and return something like the following: any nutritious substance that people or animals eat or drink that plants absorb in order to maintain life and growth. I'm sure that definition makes Coca-Cola thrilled. Or from Wikipedia, food is any substance consumed to provide nutritional support for an organism. Food is usually of plant, animal, or fungal origin and contains essential nutrients such as carbohydrates, fats, proteins, vitamins, or minerals. The substance is ingested by an organism and is assimilated by an organism's cells to provide energy, maintain life, or stimulate growth. Just a friendly reminder that dietary carbohydrate is not an essential nutrient. Or an even longer and more complex definition from a chemistry book, which I'm not going to read to you, but you can scroll through right here. Now, definitions are by definition exclusionary. To define food is to restrict the meaning of food, right? That is to exclude things from the category of food. To restrict the meaning of food, or what food is to make what you look out on the world and see as food delimited or restricted in certain ways. Yet, before we can predicate the foodness or the not foodness of something in the real world, we must have a clear definition or concept of what food is, which makes definition itself, the process of it, a special type of predication or concept formation that is anterior to normal everyday predication. Going to the grocery store and saying, hey, that's food. At a certain definition of food, or a certain definition of food, might cause someone to abstain from eating some things or considering it food that others, or even their own past selves, consider or once would have considered food. Now, ponder, if you will, the multiple religious prohibitions against eating various unclean animals or foods. And in fact, a lot of times the biblical language is "it shall be for food," or "it shan't be for food." Definitions are made up of other words that are also defined by words. Whoa, trippy. Words have magical powers like that. They're spells, incantations, charms. They're devilishly bewitching lexical units that control our thoughts, which end up controlling or modifying our behavior. Therefore, it's important that we are careful with our definitions. If we want to change our behavior, we should change our definitions. And definitions also help us think through these issues clearly, so they're guideposts for us. Before I venture to make use of the word food again, to avoid all confusion in what I will say about it, it may not be a bad idea to explain my own meaning and define with all possible exactness and precision what I would have you understand by what I mean by the term, being of the opinion that it's actually owing to the negligence and perverseness of writers in despising this particular precaution, and to nothing else, that all of the polemical podcasts, writings, blogs, YouTube channels, and nutrition are not as clear as other parts of philosophy because of this. So before you set out, what do you need to do but give the world a good definition and stand by it? So with that in mind, my definition of food is as follows: any singular substance that we can subsist on for an indefinite period of time while building and or maintaining adequate muscle mass for rigorous strength training without developing any chronic diseases or any nutritional deficiencies. Now, most people are scared to have explicit definitions. They think that explicit definitions are a permanent commitment or a kind of marriage to something. They think they can never change their minds. Well, I don't believe that, and neither should you. And in fact, I would love for y'all to help me down in the comments if you want to help me improve my definitions. Life is really lived nearly completely, or almost completely, within this prism of language, right? In one sense, life just is the clarification of language. At least it has been since the linguistic turn. And as far as I'm aware, the only thing that fits my definition of food right now is a cow. Broccoli won't do the trick. Neither will rice, neither will bananas, neither will potatoes. Only cows, nose to tail, fit the bill. Now, we can cobble together other strategies, the three sisters being the most famous, to achieve the same end, right? But we're going to be including more than a singular substance, which would mean that this wouldn't fit my definition of food. Now we can also consume foods or things that don't fit this definition. Sugar, ice cream, carbohydrates, tobacco, alcohol, etc. And we're not going to induce acute sickness necessarily, illness or serious damage, death or moral hazard, etc. We might even consume things that are toxic in small doses and produce hormesis or eustress. These things, however, would not be food proper. That said, definitions are still not enough on their own. We have to situate our definitions among other relevant definitions in the broader culture and the way that we use them, and within a philosophy of food and nutrition. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, as of right now, I can think of about 5 somewhat or mostly distinct philosophies of nutrition or food. Now, although I do believe there is some overlap and that a person could theoretically be more than one camp at the same time, or move back and forth between camps, or combine certain elements of camps, I would say these are generally distinct approaches. Now, I'm going to keep thinking about the issue, however, and how to properly classify these philosophies, but I would love any suggestions you guys might have in the comments. Up first is dietary anarchism, and that is everything that doesn't kill me immediately is food. Now, any person that practices any kind or version of the standard American diet, the SAD, the SAD, where there are no rules, no higher order thinking, no systems, no philosophy, no guiding principles, no ideals, no restrictions, etc., is a dietary anarchist. Number 2, dietary romanticism. What is natural is food. This is any person whose overarching dietary theme is that we need to return to eating naturally or instinctually. Now, there are people in the paleo camp that would fall under this category, the vegan camp, the vegetarian camp, fruitarians, which I did a video about, maybe over here, over there, I don't know, my raw meat versus bananas video. Number 3, dietary puritanism. That is, what is pure is food. Now, this is any person who obsesses over food quality, sources, minor nutrients, or obscure and unnecessary compounds to the point that they take a noticeable hit to their health as reflected in blood markers, dental health, skin health, muscle loss, etc., yet refuse to give up their diets. I would say this is orthorexia. 4th, dietary Luddites. That's what doesn't require too much technology is food. Now, these are types of dieters whose overarching motivation is fear of dietary technologies, that is, genetically modified organisms, pesticides, intense agricultural techniques, etc. They are technically distinct from dietary romantics, in my mind at least. 5th, dietary conservatism. Now, this is food is a social and cultural construct whose end is some mix of longevity and or other health goals, but whose means are up for debate. But all dietary conservatives agree that some kind or form of restriction is necessary. Now, don't look up the Wikipedia definition. It's something else. We're not talking about that. We've got an idiosyncratic term we're employing here. Now, included in this group of dietary conservatives are calorie counters, My Plate, food pyramid types, so standard nutrition, government types. Layne Norton, Gary Taubes, Stefan Guyenet, Michael Pollan, Chris Kresser, Alan Aragon, paleo types, vegetarians, vegans, and myself. Now, it might be strange to see us all lumped together this way, but this is the most sensible grouping as far as I'm concerned. These are all fundamentally normal people we're talking about here who can have meaningful dialogue, and that's because they share nutritional epistemologies. And that is this. Dietary conservatives all believe that human beings as a species, with inputs from all of their various cultural, scientific, and industrial endeavors, can solve the problem of human nutrition, which is the problem of obesity and chronic disease. They typically tend to believe this of all human problems. So it's fundamentally a faith in our own civilization and oftentimes in our own individual competence, despite the fact that most of us will acknowledge structural problems that are part of nutrition. The fighting tends to be fierce among DCs because they're fighting over market share, in addition to ideology. So people that subscribe to this philosophy tend to agree that the most important parts of a diet are 1, hitting protein targets, and 2, regular resistance training. Now, it might be strange to see resistance training as part of a discussion about nutrition, but in my estimation, and that of most of us in the dietary conservative camp, it's absolutely indispensable. We're going to talk about that in the next video. But I want to know what you think. Let me know down in the comments. Did I forget anything? Do you have any ideas, any dietary philosophies you want to add to the list? Let me know. Thanks for watching.